Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host, Mr. Sidney Brownwood.
That's very kind. Thank you. And welcome everyone to this Christmas Day edition of the Two Fat Lardies podcast for 2021. I hope you're all having a fantastic Christmas day. And I'm joined here by the Donna and Blitzen of Wargaming. We have Richard Clark and Nick Skinner. Good morning and Merry Christmas to you both.
Merry Christmas, Sydney, and well remembered. Thank you for remembering my surname there.
I've already been at the sherry and the mince pies, don't worry.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Happy Christmas, Richard. Happy Christmas, Sid.
Yeah. And let's hope there's a few more people out there listening.
I'm sure there are at least half a dozen. So
Yeah.
Merry Christmas to you, wherever you may be or indeed are.
Well, we thought we'd gather together on Christmas morning to celebrate the arrival of the saviour of the world. And
What, me?
Tell that line. Honestly, I can't write anything into this script. God, talk about line jumping. Anyway, so I thought we'd
Saviour of the world, Sydney. My God. Well, we need him. We need him right now, don't we?
Well, I thought I was Flash Gordon.
You've played so many parts, I lose track, to be honest. Your agent must be exhausted. But I thought we'd unwrap some of our memories of 2021 from a wargaming perspective and share some festive thoughts with each other to round up the Two Fat Lardies year. And what a year it's been. And we've had ups, we've had lows, we've been on a roundabout of emotions and wargaming activities throughout the whole of the year. So before we start, guys, where are we going to start? I think what would be nice with a festive sort of twist is to unwrap some of our memories, almost like gold and frankincense and myrrh. But maybe because it's 2021, some of our unwrapping could be a present of myrrh by the end of it.
So we're the three wise men of wargaming. Is that what you're saying, Sid?
I've never described myself as a wise man, to be
Right.
honest. But maybe you two.
Well, Hull is in the...
To be honest, too.
Hull is in the
Hull
east.
is east. It is in the mystic east.
Yeah.
There's some gifts coming out of Hull. I'm not sure I'm one of them.
Yeah, the three wise men of wargaming. Well, let's
Okay.
work on that basis. There must be three wise men of wargaming somewhere. So
Yeah.
it might as well be us for today.
Well, just for Christmas, let's pretend it's us. I'm actually wearing a dishcloth on my head, and Sydney, you've got what looks like a lampshade on. So we're all in the tradition of that Lard Island nativity play. So for today, we're the three wise men. We're bringing our memories, gold, Frankenstein, and myrrh. Apparently, is what the kids say.
Frankincense, mate.
Is it?
Frankincense, not Frankenstein.
Sorry, mate. I was looking at you. Right. So, Sydney, what's your gold moment of the year?
My gold moment of the year. Well, 2021's been a year for all sorts of memories, but my gold memory must really be my first contact with humanity after lockdown, which was going to Steel Lard in Sheffield in November. And I presented Flashing Blades, or with Flashing Blades, I should more accurately say. It's our game of swashbuckling in the vogue of Alexandre Dumas and the Three Musketeers. And I took that game up, which you and me had been playtesting for quite a while. Richard, I know we played as well, Nick, and with Charlie and John over at Lard Island. We took it up to Sheffield, and it was really a good chance to sort of meet people and introduce the game to them to see whether it was workable and enjoyable. And I think one of the things we talked about before is what great social occasions games days are, but they're also a really good sounding board for how a game design idea survives and hopefully thrives with contact with the public. And it just gave me a chance to look at the terrain configuration, build some specific terrain for the game and try out the ideas which we've been working on in secret. So it's a real nerve-wracking moment, but I think it just about came off. So that'd probably be my gold moment.
I think, Sid, that was a really good day, wasn't it? I mean, there was a real buzz around your table at Sheffield, actually, around the Flashing Blades, and the fact that it's on an 18-inch square table, with all your paraphernalia around the edges. You had, bags of doubloons and money, and all your little props that you'd made around the edge made a massive difference. Actually, it made a small game into a real spectacle. And of course, I think the other thing that we should say is that we did, of course, record a whole oddcast about it as we were on the way back from Sheffield, but the sound quality was so terrible that it ended up going straight in the bin. So all those wonderful things we said about your game, Sid, are now lost forever. But it was a good, fun game. I can be sure about that. And those who played it enjoyed it hugely.
In many ways, it was a pantomime of a game. You had all the props there. You had your little sack with the coins in it, using the coins as tokens to indicate, people gaining things or people spending things. And you created your own little variable measuring sticks, which were using a measurement system entirely unknown to man. And the whole thing really was like a stage setting. And it was just great fun to see.
I'm glad you said that.
Can I just jump in here and talk about my gold thing, because it's linked to that actually, because my golden memory of the year has been play testing with Flashing Blades. Because Sid, during the summer you started coming around here when after Freedom Day. We decided to make the most of the open air gaming area that we've got here, and you came round and we were playing several games, and it was fun actually, because the ideas that you jotted down were so chaotic and anarchic that we may as well have just thrown them in a bin and started again. And it was lovely to be in that situation where we're really just workshopping ideas through. That's the part of game design that I really, really enjoy, getting those big conceptual ideas and the first core mechanism in place. And between working together with you on that, we've kind of taken that from that genesis moment right the way through to then being able to see you present it at its first public outing. And that process has really been my golden moment of the year. I mean, I have to say, as a kind of it's slightly unfair to Strength and Honor, which I really enjoyed being involved in the playtest of that with Mark Backhouse. But the truth is that was over Zoom, whereas you and I, when we kicked off, we'd all been locked down for so long. You came round, we were still kind of social distancing outside in the lovely weather, and that was great to see other human beings again and get gaming and get being creative. So for me, having had a situation where, because of lockdown, we'd not really been able to play test anything, because it's very, very difficult to read the room and get the feel for what's going on when you're on Zoom. It's fine to play an established game, I think, on it, but in terms of developing a game, it's difficult. For me, that's been my gold moment.
And watching you do that, the pair of you do that, has been interesting as well. It's given us a chance, Sydney, to look inside your head, which has been a fascinating process. And on one hand has got me reaching for my notebook, and on the other hand got me reaching for the phone number for the local asylum, because I don't quite know where you get some of your ideas, but you get them in a very different way, in a very different place to where Richard and I get ours from. And anyone who's listened to the Advent calendar will be able to also testify to that fact. So your thinking process has been exposed, Sydney, this year, and that's been a real revelation. So thank you for sharing it all with us.
It's a revelation that Sid is a loony, right? Well, I'd worked that out some years ago, mate, if I'm honest.
You know what they say, mate, give him enough rope.
Well, certainly had enough rope this year, and I probably hanged myself a number of times over with it. That's very kind. I mean, I think what we did in the summer was just fantastic fun. I think when I think about Steel Lard and I think about this year, it's really been a real contrast, because we had virtual gaming at the start of the year and virtual club. And then we had human gaming. I sort of came round to your house. Thank you again for the wonderful hospitality that you and Elizabeth gave me. And
the pamplemousse. Don't forget the pamplemousse.
We had wonderful pamplemousse. That was delicious. And then we had anticipation from people before we went to Sheffield, and then we went to Sheffield, and that was a really, really special weekend. I met so many old friends, some great new friends, and I think the aspect of pantomime is really well said. I want to try and create that element of theatre, historical theatre, if you like, with Flashing Blades. And the most important thing, as I mentioned on the Oddcast, with theatre is the audience. It's the players. It's the social element that without that game, virtual or actual, it really just isn't the same. I've never really done solo gaming. That's not a criticism at all. Everyone has their own thing that they like. But for me, the wargame is all about the people you're playing with.
Yeah.
And that's brought home in my gold moment. And it's great to see in yours as well, Richard.
So is it fair to ask on behalf of the people that are listening, what's going to happen next with Flashing Blades? Because, several people would like to get their hands on it, I'm sure. And Sid, you're probably going to say, well, it's nearly done. And Richard, you're going to say, no, it isn't. There's loads of work still to do. Where do you see it? Where is it? Is it going to be out by Easter?
No. But the issue is, going forward, what's happening with lockdown? We had to cancel the Christmas game at the club this last week. Where are we going to be next year? And I'm not talking about next year. I'm talking about where are we going to be in a few weeks' time when we should be going back to the club post-Christmas, play testing these ideas, developing the ideas. We're not, or are we? If we're not, that puts everything on hold. It's impossible. The Far East Handbook. We're going to be talking about some of the things to do with that and the rest of the show. I know, but. It's impossible to play test those ideas when you're not in the same room as people. You have to be able to read the room. You get a feeling from people because people are very polite. They're not going to go, Clarky, that mechanism is a load of bollocks. They're going to go, yeah, that was really good. But what they mean was, whoa, not really convinced by that. But they won't say it because they're too polite. So you have to be in that space to read that room. So it's difficult to know, isn't it? But the game's, I've been making models for it, and I've been making more models. In fact, over the Christmas and holiday period, I want to do some filming for Lard TV, which I have actually started on one of my terrain boards, 18-inch square. So I'm keen to do that. But it's everything is a piece of string at the moment. We just don't know how long it is because we don't know how much freedom we're going to have to develop these concepts.
I think that's exactly right. I think I would say.
No, it is.
I think I'd say, it's as long as a piece of string, it's a priority for me to help you both get that to a point that we all feel comfortable with it. There's certainly some work to be done on the campaign and the different sort of campaign systems that we might use. But ultimately, because it's a social game, we need people to be able to be in the same place to play test it. I think the ideas that we all had before we started on that journey had changed so much by actually playing the game in person and at the club. We had about 4 or 5 playtests at the club with people who weren't involved in the ideas behind it. And the game changed so much as a result of that. Some of the scenarios just didn't work. Some worked fantastically. So building on all of that, and everyone's contributions were really valuable. And that's just impossible really to get the same sort of traction if you're not in the same place. So unfortunately, it's probably something which might be slightly delayed by whatever's happening in the world out there. But on the plus side, I think we've all enjoyed playing the game so far, and I'm sure we'll continue to do that.
It's been a joy to paint half a dozen figures, and that's you got your armies.
Exactly. Well, that's been a big point behind the whole idea of a very small table, small amount of terrain, and the sort of figures that most people probably have around everywhere. Most people can paint 6 figures. That's not a very big size for a force. Plus, half a dozen figures for the other participants on the table. And that's a big thing in designing a game, is thinking about the scale. And that's certainly going to continue. So we'll see where we get to during 2022.
So do you want to continue the theme of gold moments?
Yeah, you're the golden boy now, mate.
I'm in the golden chair with the golden jacket.
Avoid the golden shower.
Golden wonder. So so we've got yours are based around Flashing Blades. Well, mine based around something different as well, but it's something that I got started with this year, and I'm really excited about. When I look back on it, actually, such fun to do and to begin that I can't wait to get some more energy behind it next year. And this is my Mexicans, my Alamo Mexicans for sharp practice that I'm started to build up this year. Working a little bit with Aid Deacon on this. Aid's got a master plan to do the Alamo in 28 mil. But I thought that would be quite fun, Rich.
Is he building a wall?
Maybe to keep the Mexicans out. That's the kind of thing he would do, allegedly. So I think this fits into this year. It's quite early in this year that I got these, but I do think it was 2021 that I decided to get some Mexicans for sharp practice for something a little bit different. And I went for figures from Boot Hill Miniatures. So Nick Futter at Boot Hill Miniatures makes some beautiful figures for the Texican, what's it called, the Texan War of Independence or something, 1836. I just know it as the Alamo, really. I'm still reading much about the history for it. And the figures are fantastic. They're the Mexicans that I primarily have fallen in love with. And they're very much in that Napoleonic French style of their uniform. But they're like a sort of cheapskate version. Their uniforms are much less they're much more campaigny, they're much less ceremonial, but they look fantastic. And the figures that Nick's got for it, the poses are fantastic. They are absolutely filled with character. The flair of them is great. They're in brilliant positions. The proportions of the figures are lovely. They paint up beautifully. They're a little ragtag when you put them together as a unit, but I really like that about the Mexicans. It gives them such character, I guess. And because again, we're working in sharp practice, 50 Mexicans is a very doable project. And they're just fun to paint. It's like painting Napoleonics, but without all the drudgery of Napoleonics. And I'm really looking forward to doing it more next year. But I've really enjoyed the time that I've spent on them this year. And when I was looking back in preparation for this and scrolling back through my photos, etc., it was the Mexicans that I stopped at and looked at again and thought, yeah, they were really good, and I really want to do more of those and get those on the table. So I'm really pleased to say that I'm trying to arrange some games early next year with Aid and Nick to get underway with that a bit more, because Nick, of course, as you'd imagine, has got a fantastic collection of these, and his setup, if you've ever seen any of his photos, is just tremendous. So I'm really looking forward and hoping that I can manage to sweet talk him enough to get an invite round to play with some of his great toys as well. So it'll be an interesting sideline, but really one that's been great fun to do, and I'm really looking forward to doing more of it next year. That's my gold moment. That's the gold of El Dorado for me.
Isn't it interesting that in a year where none of us have been able to get a lot done, the things that we're valuing are those little projects where maybe you can't do a lot, but you can do a bit. And it's just the joy of striking off into something totally different and just amusing yourself in a period of, where things aren't, things are a bit negative, things are a bit frustrating. And so it's nice to be able to pick something up that you can achieve as a small project rather than a big one.
Yeah, I agree that absolutely. I mean, I've been signed off by the dock at the moment. I'm onto light duties at the moment, and actually looking forward over Christmas to getting some Mexicans back out again and doing a little bit of painting on those, because that's a nice little, keep you happy activity. Just paint another half dozen of those, and you feel the project keeps moving, and you've got a bit of good stuff rolling off the production line. It's therapeutic.
Yeah, good.
I think that's definitely always something which people enjoy over Christmas, especially, if they're feeling a little bit under the weather, is really doing something which is slightly offline for what they'd normally be doing, a little bit indulgent, which is always a great thing to treat yourself with over a holiday period. And I think just relaxing. I mean, sometimes you two guys in particular have been so busy with a hobby that you do sometimes feel that if you keep on doing that, you lose the love of the hobby, which is all about just indulgence and having fun, really. I mean, one of the things which I also think is quite interesting is that you've never really lost that sense of fun, Richard. When you decided to take Two Fat Laddies to be your only sort of business, I did wonder whether you'd actually sort of fall out of love with the hobby, but you've actually sort of kept that going. But I think you both, over the years, you've both had these projects which are quite different to what you would normally be doing. I think back to you know, when you were doing things with the Renaissance about a year or so ago, Richard, and then you with these Mexicans and Boot Hill Miniatures, Nick. I think it's always really hard to do, just do something which is just completely different now and again.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
think
agree.
you know it is a hobby, and it's got to feel like a hobby, hasn't it? It can't feel like I'm at work, and that's an important factor in achieving that is doing what the hell I bleeding well want, which is what I would do with a hobby, and that has to be that way with the business. You know, a lot of people go, "Ooh, you know, when's this coming?" Well, it's coming when it grabs my attention, because if I don't do it like that, the end product wouldn't be what I wanted it to be. So it's not a great answer, but there we are.
Well, let's sort of move from things which have really grabbed our attention in a golden way to move on to our next set of memories, which are our frankincense memories. So, Richard, what would you say is your frankincense memory for 2021?
Well, thing about Frankenstein is he's a hideous monster who lurches up and horrifies you. And I had an experience a bit like that with South African Jeremy at Ybor Lard, when he said, let's get there at 4 o'clock and have a drink. Well, that's a great idea, apart from the fact getting somewhere at 4 o'clock and having a drink when you then got to carry on until 1 o'clock in the morning is probably not the best idea. But no, for me, I'd been unable to make clotted lard apart from nipping in on my way home. And Nick, for you, clotted lard was your first exposure to the human race after lockdown, your first Lardy Games Day. For me, my first Lardy Games Day was Ybor Lard, and the opportunity to just get back out on the gigging circuit, if you know what I'm saying. It was great, and it was great to meet up with mates. John, obviously, who organised it there, had What a Cowboy on display, and lots of people had all sorts of games. When it was like most Lardy Games Days, the range of games on offer was impressive and fun. For me, it was my first opportunity to take Fat Nicholas out, and I'm not talking about you, Nick. I'm talking about playtesting the Carthaginian army list, and Fat Nicholas, the grumpy elephant, who was accompanying the forces of Hanna-Barbera, the Carthaginian commander in Infamy. And again, what Sid was saying about using games days to test out ideas and see how well they're received is very much what I've been trying to do. We did it at Partisan, we did it at all the different shows we've been to. But for me, Ybor Lard was the first time at a Lardy Games Day with Fat Nicholas the elephant. So that was fun. So just great to be out there again, seeing people getting ridiculously ill with beer, thanks to Jeremy, who apparently was force feeding it to me when I wasn't looking. But yeah, just great to be out in the world again with other human beings.
And that was John Savage's work at Ybor Lard, wasn't it? Now, John Savage is if there's a war game that is the equivalent of the Duracell Rabbit, then it is John Savage. Because if there is a war gamer who runs on Duracell batteries, it is him. He is phenomenal in his output and what he does and the games that he plays. He is the rampant rabbit of wargaming.
I was astonished when sort of John was at Steel Lard that he brought two games. And he didn't play them side by side, but for just one moment, I thought you were going to be like one of those chess grandmasters playing two games at once. Like Capablanca would play blindfolded, would play about 26 different opponents without looking at the board. I could just see John blindfolded playing these two games simultaneously, which would have been quite a feat. But we didn't give him enough alcohol to try and get him to do that.
So that's your frankincense moment, is it, Rich? That collection of activities and games and debauched behaviour that went on at Ybor Lard.
Yeah, I have to say, debauched behaviour is always at the top of any list of good things in my life. So yeah, why not go with that? Definitely. But yeah, getting out there, seeing people and playing games with people and just generally talking complete and utter crap that mates talk when they meet up with each other.
Yeah, I was able to get to Sheffield and for Steel Lard and down to Devon for Clotted Lard in September. As you say, Clotted Lard was the first one really out the gate. and it was, you know, phenomenal. We were all a bit nervous, I think, about coming together, but it was a great day, and I think it just drove home, you know, what we've missed over the last lockdown period, and what we're all craving to get more of, hopefully in the new year.
So, what would be your frankincense moment, Nick?
My frankincense moment. So for me, frankincense is something that could almost have been a gold moment. Wasn't quite, but was actually really memorable and significant. And I'm going to go with one that's a slightly different one, which is I'm going for the decision to move Salwig to North London and to have Salwig at the Lee Valley Athletics track. And the day that we had at Salwig, and I was there as a punter, I wasn't running a game. The day we had at Salwig was fantastic. The event was brilliant. I thought the new venue was fantastic at Salwig. I thought they did a great job having that new venue lined up. I thought it was really quite airy and spacious and catered for the concerns of people coming together during the pandemic quite nicely. It was accessible for us. I thought the games on display were good quality. I thought the large zone that we had was tremendous. You know, Richard was playing Infamy. Mark Backhouse was there playing Strength and Honor, and in the middle was the housewife's favourite, Minty Dave Brown, playing, of course, O Group. And so there was a lot to look at in terms of Lard, but I really enjoyed connecting there again, meeting up with people, enjoying the new venue. And I thought that it was quite a bold move to move it from where it was, but I think actually it's turned out to be a really good one. And I hope that it's a venue that we see them using again, and thoroughly enjoyed it. So for me, Salwig is my frankincense moment of 2021.
Fantastic. That's a great addition to the stable of presents and memories and gifts.
It was
my frankincense moment's a bit strange. It was only a few days ago, really. I've always really struggled to take photos with my camera. I've got a DSLR proper camera, but the actual sort of iPhone camera I've always found to be utter rubbish, because they all seem to sort of wash out all the images of the miniatures I'm taking. And then I realised that I'd been ignoring the actual controls on the camera and just been pointing and shooting. But on the iPhone, certainly on the iPhone 10, there's all these different controls, including some great filters, and most amazing of all, there's an exposure setting as well. Now, I know this is just like ludicrously simple, but I'd never realised that was there. I took some photos using the exposure setting to reset that to be a darker exposure, and the photos were just immensely better. I mean, staggeringly better. Also sort of combined it with a little camera stand and did the timer, because there's a timer button on there, which again, I didn't realise. And all of that has just changed the way that I take photos of miniatures very quickly on a tabletop. So that's just, sometimes you just come across these things and it's just, why did I not know that before? Why am I so stupid? And that was just a really great moment, because I thought, well, all the sort of rubbish photos I've taken over the years of tables, now hopefully they'll be a lot better. And I just thought that's a really nice thing to do. So that's my frankincense moment for the year. It's not very much, but it makes a difference.
You're going to be bombarding us with photos now then, Sid?
Possibly.
Oh, no, not those ones.
Not more of those.
Yeah. Ooh.
Well, I think on thinking about those kinds of photos, you strayed into our moment, or as you would say, Richard, our moment.
Oh, I wouldn't say that. I'm too old to say meh.
It's the meh.
Is that how you youngsters say it?
Nah, whatever.
Well, possibly. My kids are still teenagers, so they say.
The shitty moment.
Yeah, that's right. So Nick, rather, start with you first. Did you have a meh moment in 2021?
The whole of 2021, mate, has been meh, hasn't it? Really, it started meh, it went meh in the middle, and it's meh at the end.
What about your near-death experience? Did you find confronting the Grim Reaper to be a bit of a down moment?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Well, I'll say that my meh moment, my when I look back on the year, I think we lost Hobbsy, didn't we? We lost Mike Hobbs, who was a character that many of us knew and loved in the hobby earlier this year, which was a tragic loss. And I think, like many people who knew Mike, I suffered a significant drop in mojo after that time. So it was in April that Mike passed away. And I think that really hit me and many others in the hobby kind of quite hard. Just that the fact that we'd lost that fantastic figure of well, I was going to say a figure of fun, but he's so much more than that, Mike. He gave so much to the hobby and really added such value to it. And knowing that we'd lost Mike, I think just drew so much away from the hobby for so many people. And for me personally, that was a real meh moment, was the loss of mojo that came with the loss of Mike, and the fact that really I think it's never fully come back, has it? It's always, once you lose somebody you knew, it's always a hole that's left behind. But it's just been hard, and that was kind of meh doesn't really give it in the right context. But it was we've lost a few friends this year, and it's been quite sad to think back on that, really.
Yeah, Hobbsy was so central to so many people's hobby, not as some kind of deity around which we all danced, but in terms of, he was just a nice bloke, and everybody felt that they really knew him, and everybody felt that he was interested in what they had to say. And he was a friend to so many people. And I think we all really, really felt the loss terribly, because he was too bloody young, really.
Yeah, and I think we reflect a lot on what our hobby brings and what it gives to us. And we come back time and time again to the social connection, the friendships, and the community that's built up within that. And whenever a community loses somebody who's quite key to it, small community, big community, the ripples go on, don't they? And I think we're still feeling those ripples now.
Yeah, without doubt.
I think that's right. I mean, Mike was a huge believer in the social side of the hobby. And the groups that he set up, like the paint and chat groups, we meet on a Saturday afternoon, that's going strong. And I think as a tribute to Mike, but also because he put people together and people like being together. And whenever you think of the social side of the hobby, you do think of Mike and the contribution that he made to all of us and all the games that we played in and all the events we went to. And it was a terrible, cruel loss to lose somebody so great, so young. And you try not to think about what could have been, because that's really a quite a dark and unhappy sort of place. You've got to remember what he gave to us all, and that was something which was incredibly special. So yeah, I mean, fortunately, those sort of moments have happened this year, and perhaps because we're getting older, we've noticed more of them. I don't know.
Well, let's be sure that over our Lard Island Christmas dinner today, we all raise a glass in the memory of Mike.
So on those thoughts, Rich, did you have another meh moment?
Well, 2022 has been a bit meh, but
we're not in 2022 yet. We're still in 2021.
2021, the whole year.
Thank you for the forecast, though.
Well, actually,
we'll run that again next year.
Well, that's why I'm feeling like that, to be honest, because it's like, we came out of lockdown. We had Freedom Day or whatever it was back in whenever it was, July, August, and we all thought great. And then we had this intense period of like 9 events in 8 weeks, seeing loads of people, making contact with everybody. At the outset, I thought, bloody hell, I'm going to get COVID. It's an absolute racing cert. I'm going to get COVID and die. During this 8-week period, I'll be exposed to so many people, and I didn't. But what I did was I really enjoyed it. It was great seeing everybody again. And then all of a sudden, we're approaching Christmas. We had Elizabeth and I were in Belgium a few weeks ago. The travel restrictions lifted. We were able to go. We all went out for a bit of a slap-up feed for our Christmas do, which we didn't get to do last year, the 3 of us and Minty, for our annual Christmas lunch, which was very pleasant. And you think, it's all getting back to normal, and then all of a sudden, bang, we're going into talk about lockdown. We're cancelling the Christmas game at the club, and I'm thinking, well, what is 2022 going to be like? And the meh bit, I can't say that word. The bit, however you meant to say it, is thinking, bollocks. I want next year to be really good. I want next year to be doing the battlefield challenges. I want next year to be going to the games days. I want next year to be going to the war game shows. And I want next year to be back to blooming normal. But of course, this reminds us that normal is probably not like normal ever was again. It's Quatermass.
Well, we'll see. But I mean, that does sound like a request to go back to Grimsby. So,
No,
No, I'm not going there again.
Grimsby was worse than COVID.
No,
well,
absolutely.
you asked for it. You've just asked to go on another Battlefield challenge. But
Yes, but not to sodding Grimsby.
well, my meh moment, to try and move away from the pervading gloom of all of this, my meh moment was actually Instagram, which seems a really strange sort of thing. So my kids have been saying for ages that I should get on Instagram. So I went on Instagram, and there are some amazing model and wargaming artists on Instagram. And I mean, Twitter's wonderful, but some of the things people create and put on Instagram for modeling are simply, you know, gobsmacking. I mean, they're really, really, really incredible. So I thought, oh, this is just a great platform. I can put some stuff on Instagram. But the way in which you've got to format your photos and crop your photos is just a complete pain in the backside. And it's just a horrible platform, which, you know, is just like fiddly, and whatever photos you've taken with a normal camera, they've got to be cropped in a particular way. And then you find out that if you crop them that way, you're cutting off bits of figures. And it's just really, really difficult to use. So it's one of those things which offers lots and actually delivers, to me, you know, really nothing at all. And everything on Instagram seems to be working through hashtags, some of which are so sort of meaningless to be things like hashtag wargaming or hashtag miniatures. And obviously, you know, there's hundreds of thousands of sort of entries there, but it just seemed a really strange sort of thing to be doing. So I kind of lost out the interest with that. So, but I'll persevere. But for me, that was a real disappointment. I thought, oh, this is going to be great. It's going to be as good as Twitter. And actually, I found it really quite challenging as a social media platform, I've got to say.
Probably with your new photographic skills, though, Sid, you can take pictures and share them on any medium, can't you? Why is Instagram so different? What is it about it that technically defeats you?
Well, I think what I've been struggling with is that age, possibly. The other thing is that they've got to be a particular size, and I think there are filters which are available to crop the photos to the size for Instagram. But you know, it's all a bit of a fuss. Whereas on Twitter, you can just put basically any camera photo up there. Yeah. So I think Twitter's a lot easier, and Blogger, even Blogger by comparison with Instagram, I thought was easier. But Instagram, I just thought was really disappointing. But
it's interesting because size doesn't seem to be an issue with some of the things that I've seen on Instagram.
We've obviously been looking at different things, Nicholas.
Obviously. Well, I don't think you posted those either.
Well, we've been through our memories, at least the memories we want to talk about. I think we want to move quickly on. But I thought that we could also, in a spirit of uplifting good cheer, also sort of unwrap some of the best things we've had this year. And so I'm going to ask from each of you, what would be your best things for 2021? And I'm going to just give you two categories. Wargaming miniatures, which includes, for these purposes, figures, buildings, terrain, scenery, whatever, and a book that you've purchased or been given this year, not necessarily read, but something which you are really either looking forward to or have really enjoyed during the course of the year, relating to wargaming as well, I should say. So I'm going to ask you for yours first, sir.
Who?
You.
Oh,
you.
Right.
You're called Richard.
Sorry, mate, I wasn't listening.
No, we noticed.
I was casting my eyes over the bookshelf looking for the book that I wanted, and I've got it here, mate. I've got it here. Sepoys Against the Rising Sun. It's an academic book by a guy called Kaushik Roy, who is an Indian academic, and it cost me £200 for this crazy book. But if you're looking at looking for information about the development of the Indian Army, how it developed tactically, how it developed in structure, how it performed, and a good analysis which is not based on the opinions of its British officers, you need to look far afield. And this book I bought last year, and I've actually this is my Christmas reading project because I really need to crack the Indian Army for chain of command. I really need to move away from the British concept of martial races. I really need to look at how they were influenced by issues such as logistics, equipment, and training. And this is going to be the book that's going to give me all that. I have started it. I read 31 pages last week, and I really just kind of got into the flow. And then I hit the point where I had to give that up, along with the rest of my life, in order to get Lard magazine published, because Nick was a poorly boy and he had to go to the zoo so they could shove loads of sticky buns in his gob to make him feel better. I'm really looking forward to reading that over the Christmas period. That's my book. In terms of figures, well, or buildings, I have to say that the figures that have given me the most pleasure to buy, and I've done nothing else with them, have been two lots actually. I really like the look of these, the silver bayonet figures, which are fabulous for character figures for sharp practice. So I've got the French, the British, and another one that I've thrown on the floor somewhere accidentally. Portuguese, I think. Spanish, whatever. Anyway, I got the first three sets. They look good, but the ones that really, really do it for me, that I just take an incredible childish glee out of getting the figures out and standing them up and looking at them, have been bloody miniatures English Civil War 28mm range. On the idea that we can take what you're doing with flashing blades and maybe do some kind of skirmishy English Civil War thing, because it's that dragoons going out foraging that has some real appeal for me, those really small actions. So they're the two things. There's the book, Sepoys Against the Rising Sun by Kaushik Roy, and the Bloody Miniatures English Civil War range.
Those are two super selections. So Nicholas, what would you say as regards your special items for 2021 for your figures and or terrain and your book?
Found it really hard, Sydney, to talk about books because there have just been so many. It's been because we've been housebound for so long, books have been flying in like nobody's business. And to be honest, I can't remember which ones I bought in this calendar year and which ones are probably in last calendar year. You know, some things that you think were a few months ago was something you got last year, but I'm going to go with a book that was given to me. So therefore, books that have come gratis, that are free of charge, have a certain allure to them, don't they? So this book was given to me by Charlie Walker, friend of the Oddcast, and it's called Fighting at Sea by Sam Willis. Fighting at Sea in the 18th Century, the Art of Sailing Warfare. So it's about an inch thick, or if you want to be more precise, it's 250 pages. And it's a really nice study of, funnily enough, fighting at sea in the 18th century. So it covers everything from command to the importance of the weather gauge, to fleet tactics, to damage, etc. And Charlie, of course, is trying to, poke me into KMH2. And of course, it's always there as a light that's tempting to move towards. It's a really nice looking book. I haven't read it yet. Charlie only gave it to me a short time ago, but it is next to my bed, and it's just, I can just see that it's going to be a nice little, not a difficult read, but one that's really going to hopefully give some inspiration. And I think, hopefully shed some new light onto things as well. So it's by Boydell Press, and I don't know when it was first written. I don't know that it's a new book necessarily. No, 2008. So it's what is it, 13, 14 years old now, but certainly a worthwhile read, and I shall be looking at that one. So I think out of many, I'll choose one that was free of charge, thanks very much to Charlie. As I'm looking forward to reading that one. For figures and for gaming things, I've got to give a shout out to my genie, haven't I? My genie, Paul Edwards, who has produced in the last 12 months some of the most interesting and unusual items of terrain that I've put before him, really. So everything from trams to trundle along the streets of Nijmegen, to tram stops for those trams to stand next to I don't know, all kinds of stuff. Everything I send to Paul, it seems that he's able to produce somehow, except for that bleeding Horsa glider, which seems to be elusive at the moment, which is a tough one, because although the glider itself is doable, the canopy arrangement is really tricky apparently for 3D printing. And if you think about the journey we've been on with 3D printing, you know, we did the expose on 3D printing a couple of years ago, didn't we, with the Humber armored cars that many people still talk to me about. So the stuff that Paul produces and the quality now of the prints that we're getting in resin is absolutely phenomenal. And in fact, even I think Downrich, I think aren't there 2 mil figures being produced now in 3D as well? Have I seen that? So there's, you know, the range of it is tremendous. So I'm going for my Genie, but also I said them earlier on as well, Boot Hill miniatures, Boot Hill Mexicans. You know, the feeling that I had when I opened that packet, that first packet from Boot Hill, took me right back to the day when I got my first ever metal Hinchcliffe figures back in about 1983. So it's a real kind of reconnected me to my youth, just the excitement that I got from seeing those figures. So they would be mine.
They reckon that as you get older, you become senile and return to your childhood. Perhaps you're there, getting there, mate.
Yeah, well, that's maybe I am. It wouldn't be such a bad place to end up, really.
No.
That's fantastic. I really like the fact that Charlie trolls you with a book to get you to do the update to the set of rules that he really wants. I think that's nice. It's not bribery. It's just creative trolling. So well done there. That's
yeah. Keep them coming, Charles.
Yes. Perhaps I'll have to buy him a book on Arnhem.
Well, listen. There's a whole debate to be had about that, about where that sits.
Well, we're not going to have that debate at the moment. That might be something for the new year. But my favourites for the year, I'll start off with a book. I haven't really read that many books this year. I've had so many in the past. But I have got a fantastic book which I picked up round about the course of the summer. And it's all about, no surprises there, an obscure thing from the 16th century. So it's called Martyrs and Murderers by Professor Stuart Carroll, who's at the University of York. And it's the Guise family and the making of Europe. So it's all about the French family of the Guise, one of whom was a very famous commander of the French Wars of Religion, other one was a cardinal. And this was a family which was very well connected within Europe. They married their sister to the James V of Scotland. They conspired to replace Elizabeth I. They had a crucial role in the St. Bartholomew's massacre in the French Wars of Religion. They were interconnected, wealthy, charismatic, powerful, but they also deployed various groups of henchmen and ruffians to support their ambitions on the Paris streets. So I thought that these were an archetypal noble family and faction for Flashing Blades, the real truth behind what was really going on in early 17th century and late 16th century France. So you get a bit of a hint of that with Richelieu in the Dumas novels, but really Richelieu's power in France wasn't really controlling in a sort of a military or physical way, whereas the Guise were not at all adverse to strong-arming their way to power. And in fact, one of the principal members of the family was very closely sort of accused of a massacre at a French town at the start of the French Wars of Religion. So very, very interesting book, brilliantly written, really racy, and but academic as well. It's a rare sort of combination. So I thought that was really my book of the year. I really enjoyed reading that. And as regards figures, two things really. I mean, not to sort of go on about Flashing Blades, but the Brigade models, Brigade Games miniatures for Flashing Blades, which we've been using, their Musketeer figures are simply wonderful. And I know quite a few of my friends have sort of picked those up. They really are very nice. You've got to get them from Lon in America, but the shipping is well worth the extra cost, and they look absolutely great on the tabletop, I think. And I had the same moment as you did, Nicholas, sort of unwrapping the package and getting those figures out and thinking these are just going to be such a delight to paint. But the thing which I've also really found useful was something which is really kind of a bit glossed over, really, and that's the Warbases range of terrain supplements. So things like windows, and also roof tiles. And I did quite a bit of scratch building during the course of the year. And I remember when we used to scratch build all sort of buildings and roofs. We used to sort of cut out cornflake packets and stick on these hundreds of little tiny squares of cardboard, and that was an absolute pain. But there are some really, really handy things in the Warbases lines for scratch building, including a set of roof tile strips, which allowed me to roof my buildings for Paris for Flashing Blades. And they also do some great window sets and doors. And it's just really, really useful to be having those sort of things if you like scratch building as opposed to buying ready-made kits. And that was just real fun. I bought them all together in the course of the summer thinking, well, I might use them. And actually, when I came to build something, to have them there, it was just brilliant. And I was just thanking Martin and Diane and all the Warbases team when I was using them. And that was just a really simple, not at all expensive, but just a great, great product with so many different uses. So that was really my gold present moment thing of the year, to be honest.
Gold present moment thing.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, well, perhaps we can get that etched on a trophy.
That's what this segment of the show is called.
Well, that probably brings us towards the end of our Christmas show. You probably all got turkeys to put into the oven, Christmas crackers to pull, glasses of sherry to be drunk. And I think we're probably just time for one final moment from Nick.
Well, I want to talk about Lard Magazine, Sid, because this year is the biggest ever Lard Magazine. And I have two things to say about it. Wow, what a whopper. And thank you so much to everyone out there. We've got more new contributors this year in Lard Magazine than we've ever had before. And a range of articles, therefore, that reflects that distribution, things for all of the main rule sets are in there, some cracking articles, some pint-sized campaigns, some scenarios, some really interesting thinking around some of the game systems. So a massive thank you from Richard and I and from Sid even as well, to everybody who sent things in for that, including you, Sydney. Another piece of jibber jabber from you that's in there somewhere that people can waste their time reading. But also I want to say thank you to Richard, because Richard stepped in and took over the editorial duties when I was under the medical officer. So he's finished it and taken it through the line and done the bulk of the work on that. So thank you to you, Rich, for doing that. I know you worked really hard on it, and I know that it's a labour and it looks really great, mate. So top banana. And I hope that those of you who are out there in podcast land have been able to get your hands on a copy and can enjoy reading 201 pages, as I think it might be, something like that. 205 pages of community lard for you. So yeah, don't forget, get it in there.
I think we've had the strapline on it since the first edition of Lard Magazine, by Wargamers, for Wargamers, or for Wargamers, by Wargamers, whichever way around. And I think that's never been truer. It's a huge community effort, and it was pretty intense doing it, but the thing that kept me going was that I was really, really enjoying reading every article as I went through, and for the process, proofread it, read the article, then do the layout. And I just was gripped by so many different periods that I could see me throwing money at. It was great, but great ideas. And we talked about this in the windows, about how we've had that journey with all the different rule mechanisms that we've taken and molded and shaped over the years. And it's great to see other people picking up that baton, like Rampant Rabbit, John Savage, picking up rules ideas and taking them and shaping them to take it forward further. Same with Simon Walker. I don't know what sort of rabbit he is, but he, the ideas he had with his New Zealand rules game, really good to see that community effort.
It's a classic thing, isn't it, with rule design, where you write a set of rules for one period and people say to you, oh, could I use it for this completely different period? And you say, well, you could, but it isn't what we wrote it for. But actually what these guys do, of course, is they take it and they do that. They do that pimping that allows you to apply it into that different period or different campaign. And that's really nice. And actually, while you think, why would anybody want to do that? Who's interested in playing that? You read the article that comes out the back of it, you think, bloody hell, that's interesting. I want to have a go at that.
That's exactly right, mate. That's exactly right.
The thing about inspirations we've all talked about on those Advent windows is that it's pretty simple cyclical. You know, we get inspiration from other people who are doing things that we've done ourselves. And that cycle of seeing people take things and developing things and then us going back to what they've done and thinking, well, how can I change what I started with? That's a really healthy process. That's a really healthy human process in all sorts of activities. And it should be the same in wargaming. It shouldn't be the case that all the wargaming rules can look the same or they're written in the same sort of way. I don't think that was ever the case, but there was a lot more homogeneity, you know, 30 years ago in the sort of rules that you could pick up. Now in all gaming, not just wargaming, but all gaming, role-playing, board games and war games, there's a huge variety of different systems, different approaches, different numbers of players, different sizes of tables. And I think that's all a very healthy development.
It's a virus, Sid. Inspiration is a virus, and it's the virus that we're going to use to beat this other bleeding virus. The virus of inspiration is what's going to keep the hobby on top of Omicron and what other various Greek letter variants that the world can throw at us over the coming months. We need to keep the hobby, going and inspired, and the hobby people that write the stuff in Lard magazine are really good examples of how we can inspire each other to keep gaming in tough times.
It's the circle of life.
Circle of lard.
Well,
And remember, lard is for life, not just for Christmas.
That's true.
And on that bombshell, we will therefore leave it for Christmas lunch. And I can just thank you both, Richard and Nick, for joining me on this oddcast and all the oddcasts that we've had throughout the course of the year. And we can just wish everyone a very Merry Christmas from all of us. And we hope to see you for our next podcast in due course. So from me, Sid, and myself, Sid, and both of you, say good afternoon, good night.
And Merry Christmas.
Very good, Sid. I think you expressed our views perfectly.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Have a great time.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
In tonight's show, Sydney Roundwood was joined by Nick Skinner and Richard Clark. With music by Roger Balcom and his band.